Ayubowan, today we are going to discuss a subject which is very important as well as most talk about. It is important because it plays a role in providing employment. At least to 25% of the population is employed there. Whether it's gainful or not is a different issue that we will see. And then also it is supplying the food and the nutrition to the nation, and also it is it provides several inputs to the export agriculture. It is most talked about, especially after April 2021, when the previous or the government introduced 100% organic agriculture policy, and since then it has become the most talked about subject, and we saw that many people whom we have never heard of, whom we have never talked of, have come before the screens and the media and started discussing, talking, explaining the plus and minuses of the organic agriculture. So it is important as well as most talk about. So today we will do it together with me. Mr. Amarasekara is present, who is known to the media very well, and he was a former secretary to several ministries, and I am not going to list out his titles because we have a limited time. So let us discuss, and I will invite Mr. Amarasekara to start the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Maliyadde. This topic, of course, last week also I discussed about agriculture sector in brief, especially in that my discussion I focus mainly about the food production subsector. But when we come to the agriculture, it is not only the food production, it covers many areas like plantation, fisheries, livestock, so many things to be covered under the agriculture. Today I think we must go a little bit beyond food production and to look at the agriculture sector as a whole. Know that in Sri Lanka, as you mentioned, that about 20%, 27 or 25% of the workforce is engaged in the agriculture sector. But their contribution to the gross domestic product is less than 7%. So it indicates something that farmers are poor. It's a good indication about their income level, because their contribution to the DGP is less than 7%, though there are 27 people engaged in the agriculture sector. But anyway, when a country is developing, especially in the secondary and tertiary sectors, industry and the services sector, normally the contribution from the agriculture, of course, come down as a percentage. It is an indicator. It is some kind of pattern anywhere in the world. The agriculture sector contribution come down, other contribution from the other sectors will increase. But it does not mean that volume-wise, the quantity-wise, the production in the agriculture will come down. It is increasing, only the percentage is changing. But in Sri Lanka, we have this agriculture, since the independence, the government has tried very much to become self-sufficient in food. I think more than 80 years, even before the independence, the government started this, they gave the priority for the self-sufficiency in food. But, still that we are struggling to achieve that. But of course, say before 2020, we have almost reached to a self-sufficiency in basic food requirements. Rice and other basic other things. But as we know that there was a problem, as you mentioned, this because of the organic farming proposal, the country faced to some kind of a catastrophe, because all of that is this organic farming is not a thing that we should condemn or give up easily, but we must go ahead with organic farming. But the way that started it is the problem, because you can't go for organic farming all of a sudden. You will have to have a lot of preparatory work, and also it is not easy to do 100% organic farming. But my thinking is that organic farming should be some kind of advanced farming system where that can be done by educated, knowledgeable people and targeting the high-end market, not for the mass consumption. Because mass consumption, if you try to do, produce organic food, then a lot of people will starve. Now, before the Green Revolution, before the Mahavali system came into, the majority of Sri Lankans were struggling with food. They did not have enough food. But thanks to the Green Revolution and the Mahavali, especially Mahavali scheme in Sri Lanka, the local food availability has been increased. So that with the Green Revolution, that chemical fertilizer, hybrid seed and all these things came. That is how the volume of food production has been increased, and the relative price of food came down, which can afford to the ordinary people also. Food prices has gone up, but when you look at it relatively, it has come down. So now when the ordinary people, poor people, can afford to the food. But if you try to do 100% organic farming, this situation will change. Then rich people who can afford for the high price will live longer, but poor people may die soon. They cannot afford for the food. So that is why that I am telling this organic farming should not give up, but it should target to the high-end market. Then in Sri Lanka, still we are talking a lot about rice farming. And also what we have done is, since the independence, we have tried to expand the area under cultivation by increasing the acreage, which was done at a huge cost. If you look at all the colonization schemes, Mahavali and all other things, we have invested a lot for the rice farming. But the attention we have paid for the productivity improvement is not that enough. Productivity, of course, has increased to a great extent. If you look at about 1960s, the average paddy production per acre was something like 45 bushels per acre. But now it has come to it has exceeded 100 or 125. So that is, the productivity has been increased, but still there is a big room for further improvement. And also this agriculture sector must be able to lay the foundation for the industries. Agriculture should become an industry. In Sri Lanka, of course, we do not have that much of mineral resources for the industries, but we can use the agriculture sector as the raw material producing base for the agriculture. So I think we must look at this aspect as well before going for then we must look at other sectors, plantation, fisheries and so on. I think with that few words, I would like to hear you from again, because you have much more experience by working in various ministries as secretary, and also we have worked together for so many years. I know that you can enlighten us on this matter further.
Yeah, Amari, thank you for that introduction. Now, Sri Lanka was known as the granary of the East, which means that it was quite self-sufficient in food, and it is said that we have been exporting rice and other food products to the neighboring countries. And also we are boasting that we have flourishing agriculture for last 2,500 years. But once a president of this country in 2008, she mentioned to me that we boast of this agriculture 2,500 years old, but this is the only country where the farmer is getting into the mud up to the waist and then doing the farming in loin clothes. So that means that the technology has not infused into our agriculture. Then the other one is that at the time we gained independence, Sri Lanka was known as an agriculture country. There was a flourishing agriculture sector, both plantation, the modern sector, as well as the domestic food sector, producing sector, were doing very well. and agriculture or the farming was a kind of acceptable, recognized profession in the society. Even the youth went into that. It was well recognized. But today youth reject it. And agriculture has become a very uneconomical, losing business. And also, as Amari says, that we always say that when the economy grows, the importance of the agriculture will decline, and other sectors, manufacturing as well as the tertiary sector or the service sector, would the percentage wise go up. But now at the time of gaining independence, our agriculture sector contributed 40% to the gross domestic product. Today it has come down to 7%. So this is what happened to the agriculture during 75 years. So one can say, yes, that is because of the service sector has grown faster, manufacturing sector has grown faster. But on the other hand, I believe there was a neglect on our part when it comes to agriculture. We have neglected agriculture. I can remember that once a Prime Minister said at a meeting that, that most of the employment is provided in the services sector, and we can go for digitalization, IT, this fourth or fifth industrial revolution and all that. And then so we can neglect agriculture. I said, sir, you can neglect agriculture on economic terms, but in otherwise you cannot neglect agriculture, because 25% of the people still live on agriculture. And also the rural area, we are about 80%, more or less 80% of the population lives in the rural sector. There are no other avenues, employment avenues or income generating avenues for the youth and the people. Therefore, they automatically come back to the land, agriculture. So therefore, you cannot simply neglect the agriculture. But I believe that over the years, every successive government, they had various programs. The paddy land, the colonization schemes, then the land reform. But with all that, agriculture sector has been gradually neglected and declined and deteriorated. So that is, in my opinion, the reason. So there should be a concerted efforts. This is the time to make concerted efforts to look at the agriculture, where we went wrong, what should it be, what should be the role of it. Is it, as Amara says, is it providing inputs to the service sector and the manufacturing sector, and also is it for food and nutrition, or is it for employment, or is it for exports? So we have to think in those terms. But fortunately or unfortunately, now at the time we were in the university, there was only one faculty of agriculture, and today there are faculties of agriculture in almost every university. And then they produce about, I think, 2,000 to 3,000 agriculture graduates every year. But most of them they are not employed. There is no demand for them. They are working as clerks, some are working as the library assistants and various others, which is totally irrelevant to their subject. And I will hand over to Amara with a little experience that one day, a quite known person, he is a now retired emeritus professor in agriculture. He was formerly at the central bank, and we were in a discussion. After this discussion, we had this after tea break, and then we used to have various tidbits, so we discussed. So he said, Chandre, what happened to me, one day I went to Kurunegala to conduct a survey. And it was a very poor village, and a farmer has invited him to his hut. And then he said that, I walked through, we called it Neera, which is the mud bund, which divides I walked on that, and then I fell into the field. And then he said, I am ashamed to say this, now this is a professor of agriculture. So these are the people who learn agriculture, who impart knowledge agriculture, who impart the technology to the agriculture people. But he couldn't walk through a paddy field. So this is the state. But with that, I will hand over to Amara, because I just wanted to sort of throw some crackers into the fire, so you can take it from there.
No, that's true. Most of the people what we that we have many agriculture scientists. I also worked for some time in the Ministry of Agriculture for a very short period, about 6-7 months as the secretary. But what I have observed there, the agriculture department, they pay their attention much for this technical side of the agriculture, but they don't look at the human aspect of it, and also they don't see it as a some kind of mean for to live, because their research are much more concentrated only on the plants. But when you look at the sector today, the post-harvest technology, that is very poor, because we don't treat our food as food. When you see that the way that we transport vegetable or fruits, they are transporting like garbage. That we put it into gunny bags, crammed into a truck, then 3 or 4 people also get into the truck and sit on the fruit or the vegetable. When it comes to Colombo or some other market, that 20-30% is perished. So that post-harvest technology is not considered at all. I think we must pay much more attention for that. I think my personal opinion is about, I think 30 to 40% of the product go waste from farm to the consumer. In between, about 40% is wasted. That wastage, who pays for that wastage? The farmer and the consumer. So that we are paying for the whole set of inefficiencies from farm gate to the retail market. So it should not happen like that way, that we must be able to, what is produced, we must be able to bring it to the consumers in an acceptable quality. So agriculture, that whatever that Chandra, you mentioned about someone studying that, forget about the agriculture, but in Sri Lanka, not only in Sri Lanka, any country, agriculture is not a sector that we can forget. Because especially Sri Lanka is not, though we call it a small island, it is not a small place, 22 million population. The area wise it is small, but population wise it is a big country, 22 million population. So the food security in a country is the most important thing. And also when it comes to the rice eating countries, the security in rice is very important, because unlike wheat or yam or potato or any other thing, the rice production cannot be increased overnight. In any other crop you can increase within 6-7 months, but paddy production you will have to plan several years to increase the paddy production. You will have to provide irrigation and lot of long process. So therefore the rice is not you cannot provide immediately for any increase in demand. So therefore that prices in eating countries must ensure at least a major part of their rice is produced locally. And also the rice producing countries, most of the countries do not produce much surplus for export. They produce a very little surplus for the export market. So I think in a country like Sri Lanka, we must make sure that at least 90% of our rice requirement is produced locally. And also the other thing that what I would like to say is that when it comes to agriculture extension and the research, so we have research stations, we have research divisions in the agriculture department, but the research we have done are rather limited, because we may have done a lot of research for the paddy, but when it comes to the other crops, vegetables and fruits, our research are very limited. And also we had a good system some time back, good agriculture extension service system, where the research is done. Then the agriculture department had a very good field network up to the village level. But today that agriculture extension system has been totally collapsed. Research department, the division, they do their research, that it is there. The agriculture extension is given to the provincial councils. It's a dual subject. But the provincial agriculture department and the main agriculture department in Peradeniya ministry in Colombo has no connection. They are totally separated. So that agriculture extension service is really, totally collapsed in the country. And also the field officers, we had a large number of field officers at the village level. All those field officers have been appointed as Gramaniladaris. Now there's a big vacuum that when the government tried to introduce that organic farming system, the compost fertilizer, that gap was quite visible, that there was a big vacuum in the field. There was no one who knows how to do organic farming. There may be people at the department level in Peradeniya, but there are no people at the field level. So there was no one to bring the message to the farmers how to do organic farming. That has created a big vacuum. I think that's also one of the reasons to fail the effort made by the government on this organic farming. So that's why then also that I think in the research in Sri Lanka we have large research division, lot of infrastructure for the research staff, but most of the time I think their research are limited to producing papers, not the actual adaptive or practical research. Then Sri Lanka, as I can remember, somewhere in 1980s, a institution has been established called Agriculture CARP Council, Council for Agriculture Research Policy. That the objective of that institution was to coordinate all the research done under various departments related to agriculture. But even today, I don't see there is any research policy developed by this council. And also, what they also do the various desk work. They are supporting to do various research papers. But when we talk about the research here, what I am talking, the research required by the farmers. That is the research that really we want. So that research is not happening. What type of tools are required, the various planting methods and all kind of things, the seed production, those are the things. And other thing, I think that we have done a big mistake in the history by neglecting the seed production. Today, except for the paddy, almost all other seeds are imported. Imported seeds are very expensive. The farmers can't afford for that. And sometimes those seeds also may bring various other problems, various pests and various other diseases also. Where the seed production, at least for the important crops, we must do our own seed production. So those are some of my opinions about this agriculture. I would like you to elaborate on this again.
Yeah, I think, Kamari, now you hit the nail by bringing this post-harvest operations. Now we call it in the text that from farm to the plate. Now during that operation, there are so many things happening with regard to agriculture, but that has not been taken care of. Now, many believe that the disaster, all that has happened after this declaration of the organic farming policy in April 2021. But I do not know how much it contributed, but it did one good thing, because the country came to know there are so many agriculture experts and professors. They were all silent before that. I do not know whether they have made any contribution to agriculture development in this country. They have written papers, they have conducted research, they have read those papers in international conferences, but they have never reached the farmer or the policy maker. They would have been ended up in various shelves. But as a result of this organic policy introduced by the pediatrician and the Buddhist monk and all that, fortunately these people got awakened and they started talking of the agriculture. So that is one silver line in the dark cloud at that time. But in addition to that, now you mentioned several other things that when you talk of agriculture, the post-harvest and all that, you put all that interventions together, we call it agriculture value chain. The agriculture value chain starts from the farmer and it goes even up the foreign market. But this is in Sri Lanka completely fragmented. It's not together. There is no chain. There are links are there, but they are now. If you take, there are several divisions in the Department of Agriculture. They don't talk to each other. There is no coordination. There is no integration. Now, as you said, the extension is one arm is extension, other one is the research. But they don't talk to each other. They also do not have a conduit to bring this research output or the research results to the farmer. So the farmer is clueless. The technology is not reaching the farmer. The credit or the funds are not reaching the farmer. The good variety of seeds is not reaching the farmer. Inputs are not reaching the farmer. So that issue is there. So now I happen to read this National Agriculture Policy prepared recently by the Ministry of Agriculture. Now it talks of now it says, anyway, vision is basically looking at the food and nutrition part. But agriculture is not that, only that. Agriculture has several other elements. There are several other aspects. So, and also there are so many multi-sectoral departments, actors involved in it. But this plan was prepared only by a few experts in the agriculture only. But it involves the trade, it involves in processing, it involves in storing, transport, all that. So you must get a multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary team to prepare the national agriculture. It was not done. And now this spells out 12 goals. I have seen that is mainly relevant to the sustainable food security and achieve national production. But it is not related to other aspects of the agriculture. So these are the things. Now, as you said, that our agriculture has failed to modernize. So there are so many reasons. One is that the land is fragmented. It is owned by large number of army of peasants, and they are at subsistence level, and it is run by the government subsidies, government free goodies, the seed and all that. Then as you said, the extension service is completely disrupted. Now if you take, every crop has a different field over there, different extension over there. In the field they meet, but they don't talk together. In the evening they might meet for a drink, but in the field they don't discuss the issues together and provide one opinion to the farmer. So farmer is confused. Farmer does not get single opinion. And when you say agriculture, we now talk of this, the intercropping, then the mixed cropping, and all that undergrowth. But those are not discussed. Now, I can remember one time back, agriculture department and the agriculture export department were under the same ministry, but they don't talk to each other. Now, some products are intercrops, Now with rubber you can grow various other crops which are coming under the purview of the agriculture department. With coconut you can have mixed cropping, or you can have dairy, you can have inland fishery. Now, all these sectors are looked after by different field officers, different divisions, different departments. They don't talk to each other. Therefore, this lack of coordination is reflected even at the field level. The farm is confused. So we are talking of modernizing the agriculture, mechanizing the agriculture, but if you look at most of our farm, the size of the farm, you cannot introduce these new technologies into that. And there is no, in many other countries, Japan, England and all, they went for land consolidation. We went for land fragmentation. The Paddy Land Act promoted land fragmentation. Then the land reforms promoted land fragmentation. So there is a need to see how we bring these fragmented land together and make large cultivation agriculture farms. Then only you can introduce the new technology, new machinery, then only you can modernize. All that can be done.
Yes, Chandra, that that in sociology, I have heard two terms. One is farmer, other one is the peasant. In Sri Lanka, right throughout, what has been promoted is the peasant agriculture. Peasant means the peasant cultivates for his own consumption. Very rarely he produces a little surplus for the market. But farmer is the person who produces looking at the market. It's a commercial activity. Peasant is doing it is a survival strategy. What we have promoted right throughout is the survival strategy. We give a small block of land and ask him to live on that, to make his living on that. So then perhaps the first generation also okay, but when it comes second generation, the land is divided. Then 1 acre is divided by 3 children or 4 children, that none of them can survive from that. So that when you look at the colonization scheme also, what we have done, we have promoted this peasant agriculture. Given we have allocated 2 acres and one small plot for house and that 2 acres for the paddy. But again, those are small holdings. Then you cannot use machinery. You cannot go for modern agriculture. So land fragmentation in Sri Lanka is a big threat for the agriculture development. That if you go back to the tree gaining in Sri Lanka, that is something took place about 20 years back, I think. But there, I can remember when you go through that policy, it has attempted to discourage the farmers doing this smallholder farming. But it wanted to encourage some uneconomical units to abandon and allow augmentation of land holdings. So that is some kind of a theory that took place in Western countries long ago. When the industrial sector is developing in urban areas, people started abandoning their land and migrating to urban centers. But in Sri Lanka, it cannot happen. It will not happen. People may abandon the land, cultivation, but there is no place to absorb them. So what is happening? The people, when the increasing unemployed people, they still remain in the agriculture areas. They share the parents' opportunity by 3 or 4 children. So by doing that, they become more poor. So that is what happened. That I think the Mahavalley, we had a good opportunity to go for commercial farming. But in Mahavalley also, what we did was we allocated small block of land everywhere. We brought equally poor people to the area. But randomly they should have allocated large block of lands for the entrepreneurs. Not everything, but if they have done it randomly here and there, then those large block owners or the large farmers would have supported the small farmers for seed production and all kind of service requirement, agriculture equipment. Those things we can provide by those people, could have provided by those people. But we have not done. We have given everybody who got the land and Mahavalley also equally poor. So there are no entrepreneurs in the first generation at all. Now of course in the second generation there are few people who are coming up, but they are also catering to the as micro entrepreneurs, they are catering to the needs of the village. But we must look at something where that we can bring the large scale farmers or companies when the organized sector into the agriculture. If the organized sector comes into the agriculture, most of the problems what we are experiencing today, like the quality of the food, post-harvest technology, all those things will be looked after by them. So then it will be an example for the other small farmers also. Then the large farmers or the organized formal sector can work as some kind of a leading force for the others. But we have not done. Still our policies, we instead of making the cake big, we are trying to share the cake equally among everybody and to keep everybody in starvation. That is the policy. No, instead of that, we must think about how we can change. Of course, now this smallholder system, what we have, now it has become a given factor. We can't change it immediately. We will have to live with that for many years. But if there is some kind of a social or economic force where that it get land amalgamation, where the farmers are leaving the farm, I think we must allow them to leave the farm for better jobs. And because that today what is happening, otherwise what will happen, the farmers' income will become much lower. Every year their income will become lower because by generation to generation land is divided. Eventually everybody will become poor. No one can survive. So that as much as possible, I think we must try to reduce the number engaged in agriculture, but to increase the production, and others to encourage provide facilities for others to work in service and industrial sector. But unfortunately, our industrial sector and the service sector is not expanding to match with those needs. That is what's happening.
I can remember now when you mentioned about this land fragmentation, and also sort of taking a part of the farming community out of the agriculture and make it the land plot bigger and all that. Recently I met a secretary. He's a secretary of the ministry and related to the agriculture. He said that we cannot combine these lands, but we can try out a system where you form a company, commercial company, and then all these farmers according to their farm size will become shareholders. Sure. So they will get a share according to the size of the farm, and then they will work collectively, they will cultivate collectively, and that company gets the profit. According to the land size, the profit will be, the dividends will be shared. I think that's a good system or some alternative where we could give some thoughts and novel idea. And also he said that if you take say 1 acre paddy area, there are plots belong to about 10 farmers, and that the mud bun separating these farms are taking at least 10% of the entire cultivable area.
Yeah.
So but if it becomes one cultivable area, then you can take out these mud buns and make it bigger, and then you can use the latest machinery and all. That is one thing. The other thing is, now you talk of this getting the private sector involved, but some time back I spoke to a Director General of the Department of Agriculture, and I said, why don't you get the private sector involved, let the private sector work hand in hand with the farmer, and then they will do the buyback and they will provide the seed, they will even go into extension services and all. He said, no, Mr. Maliyadde, our mandate is to look after the peasant, the subsistence farmer. We cannot cater to the private sector. Now, it is not catering to the private sector, but you get them to involve in the agriculture. So, these attitudes also matters a lot, Our some rules and regulations, ordinances were introduced during the British period. We are still going on with that, and we keep on reading and telling the people as to why we cannot do the job, rather than finding out some ways of doing the job. So these are also matters, practical issues, we have to resolve if we are thinking of, promoting agriculture as a sustainable income generating activity.
Yeah, that as you said, that this one mistake we are doing, not only the public servants, the governments also, this attempt to safeguard the peasants. So we must not safeguard them as peasants. We must try to make them commercial farmers. That peasants, that concept of peasant, I think we must get rid of that. Because it is an attempt to keep the people poor forever. Now that, as you said, that if if the 10 or 15 farmers can get together and form a company, okay, that there may be some farmers who do not want to do farming at all. So still they will be benefited because their ownership will remain. They will get a portion of income, But if they don't like to do farming, they may do another job. They may go to the town and find a job. But still their land ownership is secured, their additional income is secured. So sometimes I know that the second generation of some farmers, those boys are not happy to be farmers or peasants, but because of this land, they can't leave the village. They are tied to the land. So that is not good. Because people, the people's mobility must be ensured. If they can't, they don't want to do the farming, then they must be able to give that land to lease it to another party or something like that, and they can find another job. So by doing that, both parties, both will be benefited. The man who gets it on lease as well as the lessee and the lessor, both will be benefited. So I think that other thing that you mentioned about the agriculture sector policy, I also went through that recently. It is, though they have called it agriculture sector policy, it cannot be called as the agriculture sector policy. It can be called as the agriculture food subsector policy or something like that, because it has not covered the whole aspect of agriculture like fisheries and livestock or the plantation crops. Those have not been covered. And also in their policy that I have seen somewhere that they have mentioned, one objective is to absorb the increase in labor force to the agriculture sector. I think it is quite wrong. They should not try to keep that increase in labor force in the agriculture. Because even today, as I said at the beginning, that 27% of the workforce is in the agriculture sector. But contribution is only 7%. So I think we must try to reduce the number engaged in the agriculture by providing them alternative and decent jobs, rather than living in the rural areas as poor peasants. So that entire scenery of the agriculture sector has to be changed from peasant agriculture to the commercial farming system. So I think that agriculture sector policy has to be totally redo to match that requirement.
Now, just before coming here, I took a look at the National Agriculture Policy. Its preamble says that the features of the agriculture sector the policy has identified as: one is predominantly state funded, lavishly subsidized, too heavily dependent on imported inputs and technology, high vulnerability to impacts of climate change and change in global market conditions, unaffordable business with less profit. Then low agriculture productivity, poor management of resources, that is land, water and soil.
Yeah.
Then low farm incomes, weak farm market linkages and lack of investment, obsolete technology, poor extension and information dissemination. But none of these things, the drawbacks or the obstacles, are addressed in the national policy.
That's the problem, that they have, problems have been identified correctly, but strategies or the project proposed for that is not answering that problems. So that I think that is what I was telling, that instead of looking at this to keep the agriculture as a subsistence farming system, we must look at various strategies to make it a commercial activity where the number engaged in the agriculture should be reduced, their income level should go up. They also must be equally recognized group of people like any other profession. Today, although you Chandra, you said that agriculture was long ago, agriculture was a well recognized profession in Sri Lanka. It's true. Still that people are proud to say that I am a farmer, but when you say that when you look at the income side, or that if you ask for a young boy of a farm family, he will say he doesn't want to be a farmer because his aspirations are quite different. They have seen how the world is changing, so they want to join hands with the changing world, not to stay in the village as a peasant. So I think the agriculture sector, whatever the support we are providing, must be able to not to sustain the peasant farming system to make it a dynamic economic activity. So that is, I think, and that should be the aim of the agriculture sector modernization, and also policy should be diverted towards that.
So can we summarize all what we have been discussing last hour, that it's time or it is overdue to modernize the agriculture sector in Sri Lanka? When you modernize, you know that you have to introduce agribusiness or the commercialization and make it more profit making industry which is attractive to even the youth.
Yes.
And you will not you will use the machinery, and then also you can go for new types of agriculture, maybe this greenhouse or something like that. Then also intensive farming, where you know you will get the maximum benefit of each resource, the land, water also, and also even the water consumption and water use. We have to rethink, you know, to reduce the water consumption in the agriculture sector, to go for new system like, you know, this Israel has introduced that systems using the water more efficiently. Then also organic farming, then the sustainable agriculture. So and also considering the involvement and the contribution of all the other sectors in addition to pure agriculture or the production, the post-harvest technology, marketing, then so processing, and all that, the trade, the storage, all that will be addressed should be addressed in a new agriculture policy to make it more sustainable, more income generating, more profitable and attractive to the youth. So with this, I think the agriculture, as I said, has been in existence for more than 2,500 years. But so within an hour, you know, we cannot discuss all the historical events, the issues and the future of that. But both Mr. Amarasekara and myself, we tried to concise it to a period of about 60 minutes with our experience and what we have seen in the field. So with this, we will hope that the agriculture experts, those who are involved in agriculture, practicing agriculture, and who are doing research in agriculture, who are promoting agriculture and who are advising agriculture, will also open their eyes and see whether we can do more to make it a more sustainable business. And also we hope to meet you soon again.